what we need to begin with is the African worldview and how it works. That provides a frame of reference that you can then use. The African concept of the universe is as a spiritual whole, where everything is interrelated. That means that what is emphasized is not only spirit, but connectedness. And that we conceive of ourselves, we experience ourselves, I should say, as spiritual beings, that as almost as cosmic beings. And by that I mean that we are connected to nature, to the forces of nature, to each other, in such a way that that's where we get definition and that's where we get strength. And so power for us becomes energy, the energy to do, to make things happen. We energize each other. Interaction becomes important. Complementarity becomes important. The relationship between spirit and matter is one in which they are connected, where material reality is understood as just the way spirit manifests itself. That's simply. On the other hand, in the European worldview and way of thinking, way of looking at the universe, human beings become separate and distinct individuals. The only way that you can know anything about the universe is to separate yourself from it, to take connectedness out of it, and thereby create what they call the object. That's all that you can know. Now, this object is a thing that has no feeling, no meaning, no spirit. Okay? That's an illusion in their minds. But it works for them, because if they what Plato did, if we can go back to Plato, is that if he could get people to agree that this was the only truth, then what he could do is say that, well, the people who were closest to that truth, those are the people who should rule all the other people. So that worked within their culture. It gave him the basis for a hierarchy within Europe.
Now explain to me this creation of the object thing. I'm not clear on that.
Okay, what you do is, if you can, as a human being, first separate, make a split in yourself and say, there's part of me that thinks and there's part of me that feels. Now, in reality, that doesn't happen. You're a whole person. At least that's the African conception. But in his conception, that's what he said. That's what Plato said. Then what you say is, there's a part of me that's better than the other part of me. This thinking part is better than this other part. Okay? Then you say that the better part needs to either control or do away with that lesser part. So you got this thinking being.
This emotional part, or what?
The thinking part is getting rid of the emotional part.
Right.
Okay? Trying to control that. And so then what he says is, that's the only way that you can have knowledge. Okay? So here if you have somebody who is dealing with feelings, okay, or who is defined in that way, then they're the lesser person. They're the bad person. And they should be controlled by the person who is just doing this thought thing, you see, that they've constructed, all right? So within the state that he constructed, the republic, then he was able to say, base it all on this concept of the object, to say that these better people who could understand the object, who were not spiritually into things, they were the people who should control things. Well, look what happens then when you get nations relating to each other or cultures relating to each other. You say the culture that accepts this objective way of looking at truth, that's the creation of the object. That culture should dominate, control those that don't have that concept. They should control the more spiritual culture, because they're the ones that are more civilized, more scientific, more rational, and all of those things.
Now, I'm going to push you on this. This is a very difficult This is a very difficult topic.
Right.
I'm going to push you because we want to make sure that, first of all, I understand, and secondly, that everybody in the viewing audience understand the creation of this object. Can I push it? This object? I'm still trying to get at that.
Okay. It's always better for me to go back to our experience. Okay. Mm-hmm. For us, what I call a phenomenal universe is important, and to break that down, all we mean is that experience is important. The way we experience things is important in our knowing, whatever that is. Go back to the European conception, the creation of the object. You take out experience. There should be no experience in there at all. There should be no connection. Okay? Another thing. For us, we learn through our involvement in the universe, in life. That, again, is experience. Go to the creation of the object. The way the object is created is by detaching the self from everything.
The object is what?
The object is the thing that is left when you detach yourself from the universe.
All right.
Remember,
Say that
the
again.
object is what is left, and it's a thing. When you detach yourself from the universe.
Okay.
Think about Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am. Meaning that there's nothing else that is important about a human being except this ability to somehow do this thing of rational thinking on this object. That's all that makes you a human being. That's what makes you important. For us, you can't separate thought and emotion. They're part of, their thought and feeling are necessarily linked. And from that, we get intuitive knowledge, which is very important for African people.
What do the two do for each other? The emotional part and the quote, rational.
I think what they give is they give us, for one thing, intuitive understanding of things. That is, for African people, like the ancients used to say, know thyself. What they meant by that is we are like a microcosm of the universe. The universe exists in us. That's an African belief, okay? Therefore, if that's true, then by studying yourself, by knowing yourself, you come to know the universe. By coming to know the universe, you're coming to know yourself. That's why they said, know thyself, okay? If we accept the European concept, then you're left with a self with no relationship to the universe, no emotional involvement in the universe. It is detached, okay? But that was necessary to create that object. The important thing about the object was that it could be controlled. That's what Plato was getting at, and that's what has been accepted since his time. That in order to know, in order to be able to have knowledge, you had to be independent. Okay, that's what the separateness did for you. And that's what the lack of feeling did for you. It gave you control over something. What you control is the object. So we come back to the object. Now, if you look in terms of people and cultures, we become the object.
Okay.
You see? Okay. That can be controlled, that can be acted on in any way necessary or possible. What do you do when you go into a scientific laboratory? You have these things that you can manipulate and do whatever you want with. That's the same way in which African people are treated, are related to by Europeans as objects that can be manipulated in whatever way has to be manipulated. Now, what we do is we feed into that by accepting their definitions of reality. Or we would understand, we're not objects. Hey, what are you doing? You see what I'm saying? That there is a spiritual reality that connects us to the universe and so forth and so on.